Welcome to Attican Plays Railway Empire. All right, hi, this is Attican and welcome to Railway Empire, Northern Europe, Hibernation, the Lady, Episode 4. We're going to head up to Norway now. We're going to connect Oslo and we're going to try to grow Norway, basically double its population up to 300,000. So first check out, we're going to have to get access up there. This is Norway we're looking at right here. It's got one of our competitors in it. This is the first time we've run into a competitor. So we are going to purchase the access to Norway and see if there's anything else and look at that. Old farmland right next to it is accessible too. So let's just see if we can go to anything else. No, Denmark is still blocked. So we've got them all but one now, it looks like, for their regions. So we've got this orange competitor is in there. It looks like they've done a little bit of work. So what are we going to do when we have a competitor? Well, of course, we're going to buy them out instantly, and then we're going to liquidate them completely. What else would you do with a competitor? So this is it's kind of a yawn, $2 million purchase. Off we go. We'll do our merger. We're going to liquidate everything. And bye-bye. One down. Okay. So now we've got a nice clean canvas to paint on up here in Norway. So how do we want to tackle this? Now, the challenge here, of course, is the geography. It's just, you can see it's very mountainous. Lots of water, lots of mountains. We're going to be building some bridges. There's no question about it. And some expensive track to handle all this. And, of course, it's well to the north. Snow is going to be a big issue. So keeping these cities growing is going to be a challenge. So I'm looking around trying to decide where can we get our resources to get up there, and how do we want to tackle this? And the first thing we see here is, look at that. There's a canned fish export in that city. That city being Fredrikstad, of course. Oslo is open. It doesn't have any special buildings, but look here. We've got another export warehouse in Skien. We'll call it Skien. I have no clue. And then we've got a real small city here, Kristianstad. So, and when there's another city, a fourth city up in the mountains, kind of tiny little place isolated by itself. So basically, I'm looking around to see what can we do as far as bringing resources over. And I'm wondering if we want to hook those other cities, those little towns out there, into our network. They aren't part of Norway, so they're not going to help us with the growth. But you know what? I say that. Could they be? I treated them as if they were not. No, I don't think they are, because the Norway region was specific. It said Norway. And this region had a different name, so sorry about that. I'm going to assume it is, and I'm assuming I'm correct in that. Somebody tell me if I'm wrong. But I don't think the game's treating. I think the game says we want this region over here that has Fredrikstad and Oslo and Skien and whatever that other stad was down there, and the city up in the mountains. Those 5 cities are it. Those 5 towns. So all this just staring is actually me thinking. So I'm trying to decide, okay, am I doing warehouses? Am I doing city stations, whatever? Decide to start out with a pass-through warehouse. So we're going to have a pass-through warehouse between Oslo and Fredrikstad. And we're going to load it up with basic raw materials that both those cities can use, that we can get to. So, and I said that we can get to, but that's not really true. It's just whatever the first 6 raw materials that I thought were useful, we grabbed them. At least as an initial setup. We can change it later. So, with a pass-through warehouse, if you haven't seen the videos on that, basically you have a city station that stops at that warehouse on its way to the other city station, which unloads, loads back up, stops at the warehouse coming through, going back to the original station. So basically the idea is that you use that to move both your city to city goods that are produced in those 2 cities plus raw materials that the cities need on that one line. So we'll double track a line from Fredrikstad up to that warehouse. And we are going to try to remember to put repairs on everything, or all the city stations and warehouses at a minimum. I don't always remember it, but I'm trying. So now we've got a note that says we can't hook up. The reason is that we've connected to a city, but we haven't connected that city, Fredrikstad, to our main network. So we're going to run a line over like so, and go down here and hook in just below that grain farm into that main line. And we can piggyback on that line to move stuff up there if we want to from Gothenburg, which is just down below, or at the minimum, this satisfies our need to have it connected to the network. I'm planning on using that line now. Very definitely have plans for using that line. All right, so now it's interesting, this particular episode, I did have a general plan, but some of it I'm just winging. Some of it, keeping Norway supplied, I'm just reacting to what happens. But I did have a general plan for what I want to do. And here comes one of the key parts of it right here. We're going to run goods out of Gothenburg to get over there to the city. I'm even looking to say, I've got these well-supplied warehouses. Do I just want to run goods over there instead of trying to bring them down from the mountains into Norway? Just take our goods, our raw materials from Gothenburg and move them up there to the Fredrikstad Oslo warehouse. And I decided, nope, I don't want to do that. I want to go ahead and get the raw materials out there off the map in Norway, or that region that's right next to Norway. And however, I do absolutely want a line running between Gothenburg and Fredrikstad, because that's going to be a key to one of the things we're going to do here. Where there is, like as we saw, that canned food or canned fish. That canned fish warehouse, export warehouse, which means we can make a lot of money sending canned fish up to Fredrikstad. It also means that, likely as not, there's going to be a requirement later on for us to send just that, canned fish up to Fredrikstad. And you might be asking yourself, what does that have to do with Gothenburg? All you've got in Gothenburg is a meat industry and steel and tools. But you'll see. It shall be clear soon. All right, so we've got our first line set up, running there. And we'll run 6 trains, 3 starting at each direction between those 2 cities. That's a pretty good haul up through there. There we go. So now now that we've made that connection, we can then put our station in Oslo. We're going to use some large stations with auto signals for these cities that we hook up to here in Norway. We've got plenty of money now. It's not a problem.
In one railway network.
We'll take advantage of their ability to move a lot of traffic pretty well, pretty efficiently. So what he's telling us is we've made our first goal. We've connected Oslo to our network. So Oslo is connected to Vasteras, our capital, our headquarters, by virtue of all these connections we have going down through there. So it's now part of our network. So what we're going to do is run a freight-only line between these cities. So it's city, warehouse. And the idea is that the train, if you're not familiar with it, the train will pick up any goods from City A that are needed in City B. It'll go to the warehouse and top off with any raw materials needed in City B as a stop. Then it'll go to City B, drop off everything, pick up from city B anything that's needed in city A, stop at the warehouse in the middle and top off with any raw materials needed in city A, and then drop it all off there. And it just keeps making that cycle until, it just keeps doing that over and over and over, supplying both cities with manufactured goods and raw materials. So here we're going out to set up logs coming into that warehouse. So again, with the pass-through warehouse, you have the warehouse in the middle accepting raw materials. And then, of course, we need the raw materials to be fed into that warehouse. Now, the good news is by feeding them once into the warehouse, you're really feeding two cities. In this case, we're feeding Fredrikstad and Oslo with these materials. So I decided the approach we want to take on this is to get these first two going first. Okay, so in other words, set up their city to city, their pass-through warehouse, and then feed goods into that pass-through warehouse, have them kind of poised to grow, and then go out and work on the next, figure out how to do the next 2 or 3 cities that we want to try to grow. Remember, we only have 5 to work with total, and one of them is way up in the mountains. So I'm looking here at the fish, trying to decide which way I want to go, and decided it's kind of a toss-up, except that the route I've chosen here stays out of the snow a little longer. It's a little further south. So I'd rather, if in doubt, if everything, all else being equal, take the southern route on this map, because that way you get a longer relief from the snow when your trains are just going to grind to a halt. So we'll run fish into the warehouse by hooking into this line that's coming down from Gothenburg. When you do these mergers, make sure you get rid of any signals that are going to cause trains to stop short on you. In fact, I think it's this one. We'll see a good example of how I've goofed that up. So I am auto-assigning the staff, and you saw right at the beginning of this, had to fix a dispute, move somebody to another train so we wouldn't have a dispute. And so I'm going to just use that from now on. There's just too many to full width. It's just, I'm too lazy to go out there and look at every single train and try to figure out the best combination of each person. And honestly, the time you spend doing that, the clock's running, and you're really jeopardizing your likelihood of being successful on the scenario. So that's not happening. All right, so I'm going to start doing this. You'll see me do this occasionally too. You'll see me take, first of all, this is upgrading all the trains to that Class 3B. We picked that up. Apparently, we picked it up when we bought the competitor. They must have had it researched, and that's new. I think that's new functionality. Somebody put in the comments if you're aware of that, but it looks to me like we picked up the rights to that train when we bought our competitor, because we did not have that right before. So I just upgraded all of our freight trains. We were running the Rhine. Now we're going to run that Class 2B or whatever it was on all of our freight trains. So now we're going to run a line from the wheat. We've got logs and fish coming into the warehouse. Now we're going to run wheat in there. And we're just going to merge it into the line that's coming in from the logs. And you see that bridge there. There'll be a lot more bridges built in this working in Norway than you're probably used to seeing me build. But I couldn't stand that one. There just wasn't any point in that one, I didn't think. That one could be avoided, so. As this goes on, I will become probably a bit more lenient. Well, I won't. Not probably. I will. I'll become more lenient in allowing some bridges to stick around as we go along. But there we go. Now we've got a line for the wheat. And even though it's snowing and I know they're not going anywhere, I'm going to queue up everything because I just want to keep working. I want to keep getting this ready. I want to have as much going and ready to go to get these two cities growing as quickly as possible. Going to run a fair amount of trains because the snow's going to slow us down. It's a long route. We want to make sure those goods are in there. So we're going to run milk in, even though we may or may not even need it just yet. We want to have it ready when the time comes and the cities get big enough to need the milk. We want it ready there in the pass-through warehouse to be taken to the city that needs it. So we're just going to run the milk line in on the wheat line, or merge it into the wheat line. All right, so we've got logs, we got fish, we got wheat, we got milk. Just looking around, we've got fruit out there, not too far away. That's another thing that we've got set up, so why not? We'll grab the fruit. It may or may not, again, may or may not be needed right now, but it will eventually as these cities grow. So let's get it into the warehouse and have it ready to go so that we can keep them growing. We'll just merge it into the into our that wheat line. There we go. Get it down there far enough it's not going to be it's below where the trains would be waiting in line to go grab more wheat. All right, so run some trains down there with fruit. And there, it's a long way out. I did remember to set the maintenance. I want to start setting maintenance out in these rural stations, especially in these mountains where these trains are working hard. They need maintenance more often, and and we want to spread the maintenance out so it's not all happening in the warehouse and bogging everything down. So here I'm going through. That reminded me to go through and set up maintenance on these other rural stations. Now we want to get pigs running directly into Oslo. Oslo has both meat and bread. So it's very important that we get it supplied with both those things. And it would be easy for us to come down here and just hook into that line and share it for a little bit down through there. And I want to avoid tunnels and bridges to the extent possible. But at the same time, if it becomes just ridiculous and you just get a slope that's just out of control, 15-degree slope, 10-degree slope, that's a lot of slope. So by putting a simple little tunnel in there, we can get that down to a 4-degree incline, and plus money's, look up there. We're on cash basis only. And money's not a problem. We cannot build and spend this money as fast as we're making it. That's how you want to be. You want to get to that point where the only thing holding you back is your own ability to build. You never have to wait for cash. So we're going to set our repairs and set up our pig delivery directly into the city. But then I realized, I don't want to go to take up a warehouse slot on that. I want it to go directly into the city. Now I'm contemplating, do I want it to be, I'd like to pick up that supply tower there so that they can get supplies going in either direction for the pig line coming down. but it also creates a situation where that's a clumsy intersection there. So what I decided to do was kind of have my cake and eat it too. I'm going to knock down that supply tower, move it up one block, so that I get the same effect. Both all the lines coming down through there can use that supply, but they're also not right there next to the intersection. So now we're going to run several trains to get pigs down there. You'll also notice I'm not, even though this one's directly into a city, we could put a refrigerator car on that and make an extra bonus. Again, the money's not the issue now. The issue now is getting that stuff down there, especially in the snow. So I would rather have 8 pigs being delivered on each trip, even if they make slightly less money than 7 pigs being delivered with the refrigerator car. So I'm intentionally not using the refrigerator car in order to make sure we have 8 units of whatever it is we're shipping going down to the city or to the warehouse. And this one is going to be a dedicated line because we have bread in Oslo. We're going to dedicate trains to run down there and deliver into Oslo. Now, that'll do 2 things for us. One is it'll improve our creation of crisp bread because we'll make sure that there's wheat coming in there. And 2, it will make it less likely that our pass-through warehouse line will pick up wheat to take to Oslo, because Oslo should already have enough wheat from the direct delivery, and that way the wheat will be there and available to go back to Fredrikstad on the return trip. So that it's a really good idea to directly feed, even in a pass-through warehouse. It's a great idea to directly feed a city that requires that good for its factory. So now I feel like we've got those 2 well poised. So when the winter breaks and you can see we're not overtaxing the station or anything. This is looking really good. So those 2 should be in pretty good shape. So what are we going to do next? Besides put maintenance on there, which is what we should have already done. Did we get Fredrikstad? Yes, we did. Good for us. All right. So now we want to start thinking about how to attack the other 3 cities. So we're going to put a large pass-through station, or a large auto signal station in Skien, and we're going to connect it up directly to Oslo. Just check to make sure there's nothing ridiculous. You cannot possibly avoid bridges, but we don't want any extra bridges that we don't have to have. So now we've got a double line. We can set our signals for that. Make sure it's got plenty of supply towers. Okay. And now we can run a direct line, automatic. This is going to be an automatic line. We can do a little bit of passenger and mail if you don't fill up with goods, because of the nature of the line. It doesn't have a pass through. There's no warehouse for it to stop at. So take full loads. So that's just a basic automatic line. Not using any cars because I want the trains as full as possible. Now we're looking down here and saying, okay, well, to supply Skien and to supply, I forget the name of it down here further south, we can do this pass-through warehouse again. So we've got something right there in the middle, the fish. So we're going to set up the pass-through warehouse this time connected to the fish. And we're going to allow fish and wheat and grain. And in this case, we're going to throw in... I started with this. I started with the wool and potatoes. And I don't think there's any milk anywhere nearby. So that's about it for now. And we're going to set up another pass-through warehouse, which just reminded me that I should be setting these on max. In good weather, you don't have to do this. But in the snow map, you want to set your warehouse to max, and you want to get as much goods in there during the good weather as you can, so that you've got stuff in there for the winter. So you want to keep them loaded. And this is especially true if you were going to do it a warehouse attached to actually directly attached to a city. And here at Christiansen, I guess it is. At Christiansen, we're going to use one of those terminal stations because they're cool looking, because I rarely get a chance to use them, and because there's no place else to go on the map. That's the end of the road. So we'll double track up to the warehouse, then double track from the warehouse over to Skeen. Get rid of extraneous bridges if we can. Get our signal set all the way through and put in our supply towers. Again, rather generous layering of supply towers here for such a short line. All right, and then we can do, again, a freight-only line that goes city, warehouse, and that will, anything that's created in either of those cities the other one can use will be picked up, plus it'll stop and top off with raw materials that we store in that warehouse. We'll run 6 trains, and we'll start 3 at each end. Over in the Fredrikstad, I'll start them all out of Fredrikstad. It's really better practice to do this, to start 3 in each end, or 2 in each end, or 4 in each end, however many you're going to run. You know, start half of them in one end, half in the other end. And so now we just need to load up that warehouse. We're going to grab this nearby grain and get it down there to the warehouse. And I want to pick up that supply tower, so I don't have to build another one. And a merge like this out away from the station, it'll be fine to be so close to the supply tower. But I decided to do one better and go over here and use a completely separate line, so that you're not even fighting with the city to city traffic. So we're going to catch the supply tower, but we're going to go on a separate set of tracks. So it's not even competing with the original. And here I'm getting confused about what I'm supposed to be doing. But I'll punch in here. There we go. I think I got it now. There we go. All right, so we double track it and set our signals. And now we can run grain directly into the warehouse. All right, so we've got fish automatically because how we're connected. We've got grain. Now we'll run up here and get wood, logs. They're up here in the mountains. So we'll have to fight our way down the mountain, cross the river, through the valley, and come on down here and hook into that line that's running in. There's a nice convenient spot to hook in. We'll just hook in right into the line that's already set up to go into the warehouse. And that actually looks pretty good. We'll double track it, set our signals. Beautiful. All right, so we've got grain, we've got logs. Now we're going to go grab the wool, which is close by. And this is unusual for me to run wool into a warehouse, and you'll see just how unusual a little bit later. But we're going to, we've got that line there. We're just going to hook into that line directly right down here. Good deal. Try to make sure it's not too tight of a line. So in this case, I'm going to take the tighter turn, the inside lane first, to make sure that the out, because we know if you can do the innermost turn, you know you can do the outermost turn as far as tightness of the turn is concerned. And that reminds me, I didn't put supply towers on the logging run. There we go. Now we can set up cotton delivery into the warehouse. Now, nobody needs cotton right now. We're just getting it lined up in advance. And we haven't overtaxed the warehouse, the line at all. I'm just checking utilization, and it looks good. So I'm just doing a flyover here just to see if there's any trouble spots anywhere that would be cause for alarm. But everything seems to be working just fine. So now we want to do something expensive, but really makes this this part of the scenario easy. We're going to buy that super expensive sausage maker and knock it down and replace it with a canning business, preservers. So we're going to make canned fish in Gothenburg. And why? Well, one, we've got fish coming in there already. We've got steel, which it needs. And we've got salt, which it needs. We're just going to have to make sure we have enough of everything. We need 12 fish, and we've got it bumped up to level 5 because we can just sell as much as we want of that stuff. So we need 12 fish. So our line that's taking the fish up to Gothenburg needs to be, we need to be producing a lot of fish. So we're going to buy the fishing village. That's expensive too. But again, if you've done this right, money's not the concern here. So we're going to level it up. There we go, up to 19.6 per week. Now, we need 12 up there to the north just for our fishery, and we'll need some more for the city, and we'll need some down in Homestead. So we've got 19.6, I think I said, so that should be really good. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to need to run a lot of trains in order to move that much fish up there. So we're going to give it a dedicated line. We're going to build a line that runs parallel to that main trunk line, the Homestead-Gothenburg line, but allows the fish to go directly up there without competing with everybody else and without slowing everybody else up. So once we get that set, the trains coming out of our fishery will automatically reroute themselves on that shorter route. So we're just going to boost up the capacity here by adding 4 more trains onto that line. So we got a lot. We're going to be hauling a lot of fish up there to that warehouse. But you can see it needs a lot. It also needs 12 salt, Well, we hooked up the salt last episode to help Gothenburg grow, but now we're going to do the same thing up here. We're going to buy the salt mine. And we're going to expand the salt production till it's at least 12. So we're going to run it up to 16.8. And then we're going to greatly increase the number of trains we have going up there. We're going to go from 2 to 6 and see if that's enough. Then we're going to figure out how can we make that delivery faster, and same approach. We're going to build a line for it. We're going to run a line parallel to that main Gothenburg-Fredrikstad line and run it on up here, but then when we get up to the salt, we will link into the salt like so, and then our new line. This was a little clumsy. I don't know what happened here. I got a little. This took a little bit of doing. I'm not sure what the problem was. Well, I do know the problem. The problem is it's too tight a turn, so that inner loop is having to work too hard to get in there. So I've got a softer loop now, and I thought I could then take that and make a softer connection into the existing line. And yeah, there we go. That worked. Nope, that didn't work either. So I'm dragging this out here, not realizing it didn't work either. So we come all the way down here, and I can't build it. Why can't I build it? Because right up there, it doesn't like. There's a tight corner there that it doesn't like. And dragging it back isn't going to help, because that's just that it's not helping. There's just a point in there where it's just too tight. So I didn't mean to do that, actually. I ended up killing the line. Didn't even mean to do it. Okay, so we've got one line going. Now we need the other track. So if we come off like so, and then just let it have a little gap and soften that turn, then that'll work. It's a little ugly, but it does work. So there we go. Now we've got double track going back to the warehouse for the salt. And we'll set our signals and have a much faster way for the salt to get up there. Not because the other one would be slow per se, but because if the traffic gets too big, it'll be slow for everybody. So by doing this, we should improve the flow for traffic between Gothenburg and Fredrikstad, and allow the salt to be moved quickly up to Gothenburg, and we're going to be moving a lot of salt. So now we've got a lot of salt, a lot of fish, a lot of steel, so we should be able to make a lot of canned fish, and that canned fish is what we need for that export warehouse, which is just going to print us some money. And again, we are looking ahead. So now I see a traffic jam, and I see the problem. I've got a poor job there. I should have taken out a signal right there. See that train right there? That train is offending us. So if I try to delete it twice, it will delete it and send that train back where it started, which is a nice feature they've added to the game. Don't remember exactly when they did that, but I'm going to send that train back too. They can both start over. But by getting rid of that signal there, see, that train was trying to come out and go across to the right-hand tracks, and the other train was trying to go in there and was stopped in the same spot. So that freed everybody up, and now they can run. And I do see the train stopped up there, so I'm suspicious of that. I think I've misread the situation, but anyway, I put in another set of tracks here in this little short space. And here's what the problem really was. It wasn't that I needed more track. I didn't have signals set, so the trains were waiting on each other. That was just horrible execution on my part. Get those signals in there, get those tracks running back and forth the way they're supposed to. Now everybody can take off. And you can see Fredrikstad right now is actually diminishing. It's actually losing people. We are going in the wrong direction. So we've got a promoter here. We're going to stick him, I think, on Fredrikstad. Or Oslo. Okay, Oslo. It's best to put it on a city that's growing. The promoter adds more value to a city that's already in growth mode. And remember, we're trying to grow the entire Norway, not just any particular city. So you can see we're not even halfway to that 300 yet. So we're barely making gains. We've got Skien is growing a little. Oslo, well, it's growing. Oslo is growing. Remember, they're either growing or they're not, or they're diminishing. So Skien is growing, Oslo is growing, but Fredrikstad is actually diminishing. So we're not making a lot of headway right now. But give it time. All this stuff has to show up. You know, all those goods from the rural stations have to get into those warehouses, and those trains that are coming back and forth need to come back. So that's where it was a bad move. Really, what's causing this is the fact that I started all six of those pass-through warehouse trains in Fredrikstad. If I'd started them 3 on each end, there would be goods coming into Fredrikstad earlier, and that way it would not diminish. So that was totally bad execution on my part. Laziness. I just started all 6 of them in the same place. I should have started 3 from Fredrikstad and 3 from Oslo. But once that stuff starts coming in there, because our warehouse has plenty of goods, it's just a function of getting those trains back there. See, now it's starting to get a little bit. It's got some wheat, and once it gets some crisp bread from Oslo, then it's going to be much better shape. We've got a new station master, doesn't add much, so we're going to stick with what we got. And now you can see it's much better. It's not quite growing, but it's much better. It's back to neutral now, so it's not costing us ground, and we want to get it growing as soon as we can, of course. So we're getting growth down here in Kristiansand, and it's got a worthless industry unless we want to run coal down there. And even if we did, it wouldn't have a customer. So we're going to buy that chemical industry, knock it down, and put a weaver in there because we've got that cotton being loaded in our warehouse. So we put our weaver down here and set it up as a level 2, and then now that'll become part of the demand for growth in Kristiansand. We've already got the cotton up there, or wool, that we can bring down, and that the cloth will also help both Skien and Kristiansand meet their demands because they'll both need the cloth at some point. So now you can see we're starting to get logs in there in Fredrikstad. That's better. We are getting growth in Oslo. I think the biggest reason is because it has both the bakery and the bread. So it's getting bread and meat all the time. And now what we can do, it just hit 60, so we can put my favorite building, the museum, in there, which will help. That gives it an automatic 10% demand satisfaction. So that's going to help us keep it growing more of the time. And that's really, this particular segment of the scenario is just that. You're trying to keep as many of the cities in Norway growing as much as you can. It's because of the geography, because of the layout of the locations of the resources and stuff. It's very difficult to keep them all growing all the time. But we're just trying to get those green dots on as many of those cities as we can and try to make sure we don't have diminishing situations where we're going backwards in any of the cities like we had earlier with Fredrikstad. And here's a little cheap bonus. I'll just grab that because it's just there, and I'm I'm looking at it and I'm here. So grab that bonus and then delete the track, and cheesy money. But skiing is growing, and it's got the opportunity for another industry. And what we can do here now is what we can do right now is resolve this conflict. This is the kind of crap you get when you take the easy way out with putting your folks on trains. Anyway, that's fixed. Now, where were we here? Oh, we got way over there. All right, so in skiing, we put in a meat industry, because the meat is such a fundamental. Now skiing can get meat from Oslo, but Christensen can't. So we want to put that meat industry in skiing. Now skiing is playing the role for Christensen of meat and bread, similar to the role Oslo is playing for Fredrikstad by supplying meat and bread, the two most fundamental manufactured goods in this particular supply chain. So we're going to run pigs down here, and decided to, spend the money and avoid the traffic by setting up another set of tracks that runs down parallel to the original set and runs into skiing. And goes all the way down there. And of course you have to give it a little gap whenever you have a bridge, because the bridges can only be too wide in this game. But we'll double track it all the way back up to that new station. Notice we put in a station just for the skiing deliveries, because I don't want the waiting for that station and the waiting for the Oslo station to interfere with each other or get out of sync. So we can run full trains of pigs down to skiing and have meat that's going to go to skiing and also down to Christensen. So there we can see Christensen is growing and skiing is growing. And we're doing all right. We're doing all right, actually. Now, what I want to do here is run similar to what we did in Oslo. These are like mirrors of each other. We want to run grain directly to skiing, directly to that bread industry, rather than having it come out of the warehouse, for the same two reasons we discussed previously, which is, one, we want that grain supply going into that bread industry, so we run it directly into the town. And secondly, we want to take that burden off of our pass-through trains, so that they will be free to pick up other goods to go to skiing, and they won't just fill up with grain all the time. That way they'll be more likely to get logs and fish and other things that skiing can use. So this is really clumsy right here. It's too close. The end of the platform is just too close to the existing track. And I'm contemplating all kinds of things here. I even contemplated deleting the track. Decided that what I really wanted to do was move that station back and give us some more room to work with. So we're going to start over on that station, move it back away from the track, and give ourselves some a little runway to work with. And I toyed with the idea of, really trying to conserve and build the shortest bridge possible or shortest tunnel possible and all that good stuff. thought about having it, flat against just a flat crossing, which would work just fine. But there's a 19 and a 15 and a 17 degree inclination. I mean, it's just out of control here. Just too much of a slope because you're up on a really high hill at the end of that platform, and you're really just asking the train to just kind of fall off the end of the earth. So I decided, build a nice big bridge. Who cares? It's only money. And now you got a nice clean run, and your trains should be able to go at decent speed, and you'll just have them merge back here rather than all the way up at the station, because basically the station is coming right off into a bridge. But that should work great. They'll be able to move faster because they don't have the big slope to deal with, and that should be good. So now we can run grain directly into Skene to that bread industry. All right, so we've got meat and bread for those two down there. That's our second pass-through warehouse situation. I'm going back now to previous era research to get some bonuses. Got a new chief engineer, but I decided he doesn't really add that much or change that much, so we're going to stick with what we got. And now we see that Christensen has grown, and it has actually grown into having a spot for another business. Well, we've already got textiles being created down there, so it's a perfect opportunity to put a tailor down there in Christensen, because it will just sort of, if we can provide the weaver with goods, then we've automatically provided the tailor with goods as well. And the whole thing with this demand satisfaction is provide the city with what it needs. So we're going to put a tailor down here. Now we've got a beautiful little combo, and if we can just get wool down there, we can keep the tailor happy. We can keep the weaving factory happy. Going to bump the weaver up enough to make sure that it can provide the tailor and send cloth up to Skene, and provide cloth for Christensen. So we're almost to 200,000 now. So we're starting to make some progress. Now there's that other city I mentioned, Rajukin, I think it is. It's just in the middle of nowhere, and I contemplated running a line from Oslo and a line from Skene up to it, and between them it should get meat and bread, and then we could just throw one or two other goods. It'd probably grow the city fairly easily, but I decided to just it's in the middle of nowhere. Decided to just go with the four that we've got and keep growing them. It's not losing ground, so it's not hurting us. And as long as we keep making sure that we're growing these four cities, we should be in good shape. Growing them as much as we can. And 1, 2, 3. Whoops, I missed the other three. 3 of our 4 cities are growing right now. So what's the matter with this guy? Oh, he's right at 60. He just needs one little bump. He could use some cloth or something to bump him over the edge. And what I notice is he's not getting bread fast enough. So we're going to buy that bakery out, because we've got plenty of wheat coming in there. And then we're going to, and this was a little weird, I don't know what happened here. I thought, didn't I just buy that? And yes, I did, but it was still counting down, I think. So there, I acquired the bakery, and now I'm going to expand that bakery a couple of times so that it's making more bread, so that we can make sure we can feed Oslo and Fredrikstad. There'll be more bread coming down to Fredrikstad on our pass-through line. And there you can see bread coming down right there. A little meat and a lot of bread. So good deal. So this is looking pretty good now. Yeah, we are starting to progress now. Now I said there's a whole bunch of yellow triangles down there. I think I've got a traffic jam. And I need to recognize it and go down there and fix it. There, I see it. Ugh, this is ugly. What's going on here? And this is another one of those deals where if you have a bad design, eventually you'll get the right combo of traffic that'll get you. So I'm looking at this saying, what is going on here? So the first thing I see is right there. We've got a train that is backed up, and it's keeping people from going over to there. Just move him up a little, and now they can go over. And we want to get rid of that signal right there. So I decided to reset that one train and get rid of that signal. That signal is definitely causing problems. But you'll notice we're still waiting. So what's going on here? There's still another problem, and here it is, and this is the one. This is the one we talked about in the other episode. Really need to get rid of that stupid supply tower. It is just stupid to have it there in all that traffic and causing the opportunity for trains to stop there and create a problem. So what we're going to do here is move one signal short of that merge, make sure we get rid of that signal just now that's past the merge, and now everything should move very smoothly through there. That should have been done long ago. That never should have been done in the first place. If I'd been paying more attention, that never would have happened. Neither one of those should have happened. That was poor track layout for me, or by me. But now we can see that there's no delays. Everything's moving. It'll take them a while to get them all in there since they all got backed up, but they're moving right through, so we're looking good. Another promoter, so we certainly want to stick it on one of our cities in Norway, so we'll throw it on Fredrikstad.
Slowly becoming noticeable in Norway too.
And now we're starting to get some real growth. We're up to 225. We seem to have gained about 25,000 people every time we check it, so that's great. And we see here that we're not getting the vegetables over to Oslo. It's gotten big enough to need them. Looking around to see where can I put them, and I decided to just run them straight into Oslo. So I'm just going to, or excuse me, into Skien. It's Skien, I think, that's missing the vegetables. So we're just going to run veggies straight into Skien. So this is, the plan stage is over. We've got 2 pass-through warehouses, and that's the plan. So the plan is over. Now it's just react. Now I'm just piecemealing wherever I see a problem that I think I can apply a Band-Aid to. That's what I'm doing. I'm applying a Band-Aid so that we can keep these cities growing. Okay, so that'll get veggies down there. All right, Fredrikstad is growing and has an opening now for another business. So what would be a good thing to put in there that we know we can supply? And we know that there's a lot of milk up there in that warehouse. We've been loading it with milk. So we're going to put a dairy farm in there and bump it up a couple of times so that the milk is a big part of the demand for that city, and it can send the cheese up to Oslo. But main thing is, because there's plenty of milk, we should be able to get plenty of milk down there to keep satisfaction up and keep that city growing. Here we go yet again, an accountant who doesn't really add that much to us, so actually takes us backwards, so bye-bye. And let's just take a look at our competitors and see how we're doing. We're at 184 million. Our nearest competitor is at 45 million. I think we're all right. I think we are all right. So we've got Schemes growing. Christensen is right on the cusp. What do they need? What do they need? Sausages. They're not getting enough sausages. We probably haven't upgraded. Sure enough. Don't play blackmail. So we're going to pump up that sausage maker. He's getting plenty of pigs. So that sausage maker will start making more sausages, which will get those down and help Christensen grow. Not to mention it makes us more money. Oslo has fizzled out, but it's pretty big. It's going to be hard to grow them more. We really want Christensen to grow here. It's a little bit fizzled out on its own right. So let's see what we can do about it. So we're going to add another station here. And this is for the logs because this is another one of those feed the industry directly, not through the warehouse. So what we're going to do here is we're going to set up another station to pick up logs, run it directly, not into the warehouse, but directly into the city of Fredrikstad, and for purposes of supplying that sawmill. And by doing that, same principle we've been talking about, that keeps the satisfaction up on those logs because you got a dedicated line going to that city, and it takes that burden off of your pass-through warehouse line so that you're less likely to pick up logs on the pass-through and more likely to pick up other stuff that the city needs. So we keep following the same principle, and this is really helping because now once we get that set, I'd forgotten to tie it in there, but now that we've got it tied into the line, we can run our line from our new logging. It's amazing how many things pop at you at one time. Buy this, staff that, set up this line, set up your. This thing keeps you moving. So now we've got logs coming directly into Fredrikstad, which is going to have, as I explained, multiple good effects for us. So how are we looking now? Now we're about 250. Yeah, it's about 25,000 every time we look. So look a couple more times and we'll be good. But I'm not seeing any growth down here. 53%. What are we missing? This is what should have been done right off the bat. If you're going to, again, it's the same principle. We just keep this is good. We keep repeating it, but it's the same principle. If you're going to have pass-through warehouse, make sure that you feed industries directly. So we're going to now set up a direct line so that we can feed our weaver directly from the wool farm, the sheep farm, I think they're called, and that is going to really help us because that's going to give us, going to keep up the satisfaction on the weaving and keep up the satisfaction on the tailor that's also in that city, and that combination is very nice. And I've got too tight a turn here. There we go. So, whoops. There we go. Soften up the turn and everything's fine. So now we're going to take those trains Now see, and this is good. What's happening here? Taking those signals out of there that would cause a train to get in there and block. So that should be a good junction. And what we're going to do now is repurpose these trains and say, okay, you don't need to go to the warehouse anymore from now on. You want to just go directly to Christensen. So we're going to copy the line, then we're going to go to the next one, modify the line, and insert the copied line, and do the same thing again, insert. There we go. Now we've got all 3 trains going directly, and we'll give them a 4th train. So now we're going to have 4 trains going directly into Christensen with the wool, and that should keep the satisfaction up there. And we're just going to dump these. They're not helping us anymore. And we really don't want them carried anymore. We want the other items to be carried by the pass-through line. Okay, growth there. Growth in Oslo. Growth in Fredrikstad. Now we're doing better. We've got 3 out of the 4 growing. Now here I decided to run some fish directly into Fredrikstad just because we don't seem to be getting a good enough supply of it. And I double checked to make sure that we had a reasonable amount of fish up there at that fishery before I started running these. And then I looked at it and said, nope, those trains just ate it all up. So we're going to buy the fish village and we're going to bump it up. And it may... we may actually overproduce fish, but I'd much rather overproduce fish and have fish going to our cities that need it for growth than to have a situation where a private owner is setting it at some value that is not giving us enough fish down here in our network to really keep these cities growing. So we can see we got Oslo at 83,000. It's over 50% satisfaction. So, you know, we're getting into some weird stuff. We're getting into some stuff that's really hard to bring over there. So we'd be better off if we could grow one of these other cities. So Christensen is growing right now, but see how it's just barely. It's just hanging in there. And what I'm going to do here to kind of help it get a little extra bump is just run a couple of trains, 3 trains actually, that just run from the warehouse back over to the city and see if we can't just give it a little extra oomph in terms of the products that it needs, because it's got, it's probably in the city-to-city deal, it's getting both the meat and the bread from Skeen. So a lot of times it's not getting that much extra materials brought into it from the warehouse because the train's already loaded with meat and bread. So we're just going to give it 3 extra trains to just go back and forth and shuttle goods down there. And how are we looking? I feel like we should go look again and have another 25,000 growth. So we do have milk, so we could run some milk directly into Oslo, or no, yeah. Now we're going to skip, we're going to run, we've got enough milk up there that we can run some trains out of that same line and just run them all the way over to Skeen. Just kind of go through Oslo, run them to Skeen because Skeen is short on milk. We're just trying to get anything we can to get in there to get us over that 60, to get us 61 plus, and get that city growth going. We're also going to replace all of those freight trains so that we don't have breakdowns. and we'll replace all of our passenger trains. So we've got new trains everywhere. All right, that's more like it. We're up to 280. Need another 20. We got one. I see three of our 4 cities are growing right now, so we're looking good.
Apparently, it requires someone with your experience and qualification to cross such a challenging landscape with railway tracks.
He's teasing us. We're not really quite there. Now we've grown Oslo to 90. That's pretty good. We got 90. It's ready for another business if we want to give it one. I can't remember if I gave it one or not. I don't think I did. I wasn't sure what to give it. Oh, yeah, I remember now. Hadn't built any of this aquavit, this liquor, so I put one of those in here, thinking we had potatoes, but we actually don't have potatoes running in that Oslo Fredrikstad warehouse. So we're missing potatoes in Oslo. So, or vegetables, I should say. So now they look like potatoes. So now I'm looking around, okay, where am I going to get vegetables? And I'm going to have to go back over here to Skeen, to that one up on that hill, and run it over that way if I want to get potatoes over there to Oslo. And I do. I want to keep Oslo growing. I want to keep them all growing as much as possible. So now we're going to set up we're going to have we need more space. We need a northern receptacle, if you will, a station where we can drop stuff off. And a warehouse, the beauty of a warehouse is because it reaches over the city, so to speak, we can put it out there and not be interfered with by our businesses we own. A station, another train station, literally will not fit in Oslo. So we're going to run a line off of this existing line, the line that we built to run those pigs down to Skeen, and we'll hook into that, and then we can hook into from veggies into that up here off of this right there, off that hill. We can go down and hook a line into that same line, kind of over that river and down that hill. So I'm going to get back and give myself a little room. And we'll just make a big bridge and go on down here and hook in, and actually it turned out to be pretty straightforward. If you don't mind building big bridges, it's very easy. And by scooting back some, you leave enough space so that you can actually merge the lines across the bridge on the station side, which is better because it allows your trains to wait closer to the station. And now we can run veggies into Oslo directly, and that will allow that aquavit industry, that distillery, to stay fulfilled. And there we go.
Prosperity and growth finally found their way to Norway.
So we've hit our 2, and now,
this, you will
just
also
as we
have
thought,
to give the industry a leg up.
Just as we thought, now we're going to have to move tools to Skeen and canned fish to Fredrikstad, and we're already set up on the canned fish, at least in part, and we'll go after it in earnest in the next episode, and we'll figure out how to deal with those tools. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it'll help you become a better player. I hope you'll like, comment, and subscribe, and join us for our next Railway Empire video. Thank you.